Hello, everyone. I am glad to be back, although it's only been um a day. I'm not used to doing streams 2 days in a row. Um and I'm sorry yesterday for the technical issues I was having. Um my internet was not wanting us to do our thing that we do, and it was being very rude. Um And so today I'm actually starting from towards the end of chapter 19. So when I start, I'm just gonna start rereading from the page that we had stopped on. It literally, my internet went out and it stopped me in the middle of page 257, so I'm just gonna start from the top there. Hi Cookie, hi Nina, hi Tina, Psykeen, hi. Good to see you. I don't know if I've seen you here before. Ooh, Cookie, Volume 7 is coming out in 10 days. That is exciting. And to think we are only in Volume 1. It'll be a while, but it's nice to know that. Um, yeah, so I'm hoping I don't have any internet issues again today. Um, and this stream might be a slightly long one, because I wrote down that we have 54 pages to get through, and we actually have a couple more because of where we stopped. But that's fine, we can do that. I think when it cut me off, I was in the middle of, like, what was happening? We were, oh yeah, He Yu and Xie Ching Chung are trapped on the island together, and they're in a cave now, and they were reading the cave graffiti, and it's all He Yu's fault, and He Yu's, person that he paid to sabotage the bridge and everything is so obedient that he wouldn't even help him when he, like, made it really obvious that, things are not going according to plan. Oh, Psykeen, it's the first time you've had a chance to join a live since you found the channel. Thank you for joining. I know this isn't my regular schedule, and normally I'm on Mondays and Wednesdays, which I know is doesn't always help as far as people wanting to join live. In the future, maybe I'll end up, like, having a more flexible schedule like this and moving the days sometimes, but I do think it'll normally be Monday, Wednesday. But yeah. Henry. Yeah, she cased on my file till I Compendium. um, I'm just gonna start at the top of page 257, which is in chapter 19. He Yu even shot a glance at Xie Qingcheng. There was a hint of irrepressible disdain in his eyes. That's right. Here we take shelter from the rain and join in love, thanking the heavens for bestowing us with this fateful opportunity. How many quintessential classic love stories started like this? The white snake smiling as she asked to borrow an umbrella from Shu Hanlin in the boat, while Benini laid down an entire red carpet for Nicoletta in the rain so that she could descend the steps. And there's a footnote for Shu Hanlin in the boat. The character Xu Xian from the classic Chinese love story Legend of the White Snake. As Xu Xian was a scholar, Han Lin may be a reference to the Han Lin Academy, or a misspelling of his courtesy name, Han Wen. If this were Xie Xue, perhaps he would find this night much more pleasant. Perhaps they could have followed the example set by their predecessors and carved the words, "So did we," beneath the handwriting of their Shuezhang and Shuejie, who had gotten together because of the rain. Too bad the person trapped on the island with him right now was Xie Qingcheng. It was exceedingly boring for two straight men to be stuck together, especially when they weren't on particularly good terms with each other. Xie Qingcheng sensed his grumpy gaze and adopted an even crabbier expression in response. What are you looking at me for? I'm sorry, but there's no one else I can look at. He Yu tossed the rock into the air a couple of times, then carelessly scratched out a few words. May my dreams come true. Powdered stone fell with a whisper as he worked. When he finished writing, He Yu tossed the rock away and turned around. Doctor, why don't you also have a go at a little immaturity? Xie Qingcheng's eyes lit up slightly, but in the end, he shifted his gaze back to the downpour outside. In the mist-like, hazy, warm light, his silhouette was as thin as a sheet of fine calligraphy paper that could be dispersed by a mere gust of wind. Fine calligraphy paper also has a footnote, a type of special pink paper invented by Xue Tao, a Tang Dynasty poet. I don't know why I thought we would have had fewer footnotes in this because it's a modern Danmei, but we're up to number 30. I'm not complaining, though. I love learning about all these little things. No need. My wish is a fantasy. Oh? He Yu said offhandedly. Then why don't you tell me what kind of daydream it is? Can I ask? I hope I'm not offending you. For some time, the only sound was the howling of the wind and the shower of rain outside. Just when He Yu thought that he didn't want to bother talking to him anymore, Xie Qingcheng spoke in a calm voice as he gazed at the rivulets of rainwater streaming over the rocks beyond the cave. I didn't want to be a doctor. Nor are you one, right now anyway. I never wanted to study medicine when I was young. At this point, He Yu was a bit perplexed. He raised his almond eyes to examine the older man. Then what did you want to study? Xie Qingcheng got up and walked deeper into the cave. He stared at the "May my dreams come true" that He Yu had carved, then said, It's been too long. I can't remember anymore. This was a lie spoken without the slightest bit of sincerity, entirely perfunctory to the point that he didn't even bother to hide the frustrated disappointment in his eyes. He Yu almost suspected that he was using this as an opportunity to insult his intelligence. Xie Qingcheng turned away, as though he didn't want to address this subject any further. He returned to the center of the cave and asked He Yu, Is there anything to eat? It was indeed dinner time by now. The only food He Yu had brought onto the island was the mango mousse cake he had originally made for Xie Xue. But now, it looked like it would need to be sacrificed for the sake of their rations. He Yu didn't have much interest in Xie Qingcheng anyway, so if Xie Qingcheng didn't want to talk about his former life plans, then he likewise had no interest in asking him. He took out the cake and passed a piece to Xie Qingcheng. Xie Qingcheng must have been starving, as he wolfed the dessert down immediately without even sparing it a glance. Do you have any napkins? Xie Qingcheng was a stickler for cleanliness, so after he finished eating, he even asked Secretary He for napkins. Secretary He looked around and spotted a first aid kit on the canvas table. Thinking that this type of kit might have napkins and such inside, he went over and rummaged through it. The light was too dim, so he searched by touch, and when he found a package that seemed to be roughly the right size to be napkins, he tossed it to Xie Qingcheng. Xie Qingcheng caught the package and was just about to open it when he suddenly realized the texture wasn't quite right. Why was it a paper box instead of the usual plastic wrapping? He examined the box, then sighed. What? Without a word, Xie Qingcheng tossed the Durex box back to He Yu. Do you have eyes or not? He Yu looked at it, paused for a few seconds, then quietly put the box back into the first aid kit. Fucking fantastic. And it was even the textured kind with the delay lubricant. Granted, both of them were rather thick-skinned in this area. Generally speaking, it was difficult to phase He Yu, and this was just a mistake, so it wasn't anything to make a fuss over. As for Xie Qingcheng, he was calm and steady by nature, and rarely let his emotions get the best of him. Besides, he was already a man who had gotten married and divorced. Though he wasn't particularly interested in these kinds of things, seeing adult products could hardly offend his delicate sensibilities. Xie Qingcheng merely furrowed his brows. Why are all you students these days so depraved? This isn't so bad, He Yu said mildly. You haven't even seen the worst of it yet. As he spoke, he noticed a notebook lying next to the medical kit. Utopia Guest Book. These notebooks usually served as anonymous confessionals, with writers adding on to previous comments over time. Even if previous writers might never see the ensuing comments, those who came later could carry on the discussion and add their own juicy tales. Reading these tomes from cover to cover was also quite interesting, especially considering that these books usually ended up containing exciting stories of romance or friendship. He Yu was suddenly struck with an idea. He picked up the notebook and asked Xie Qingcheng, would Dr. Xie like to see? This notebook should have a lot of content that'd help you better understand the ways of modern youth. With nothing else to do, the two of them began to read it together. As expected, the notebook was chock full of different kinds of handwriting. The contributors wrote mainly about declarations of love, the beginnings of friendship, secret confessions, and the like. They were leafing their way through when He Yu let out a sudden hum of surprise. Xie Qingcheng, someone's mentioned you here. That's the end of the chapter. And we're on page 261 for chapter 20, which is called Only for Him to Catch Me in the Act. My immediate thought with that chapter title is that He Yu is making up what it says in the book about Xie Qingcheng. But I will see. At first, Xie Qingcheng wasn't paying much attention to the book, but when he heard what He Yu said, he looked over the page again. He discovered that there was a box in the very corner of the copy paper-sized page labeled with the words Group Chat for Gays, in which his own name appeared with great frequency. Xie Qingcheng had an ominous feeling about this. Sure enough, as the two of them read through this section, it turned out to be written by a whole group of little bottoms who were deep in a heated discussion about the ideal tops from the surrounding colleges and universities. In short, there were too many bottoms, not enough tops, and all of them were looking to get laid. The first mention of Xie Qingcheng's name was written in ballpoint pen. The handwriting was faded and somewhat aged. The writer wrote, "There's a new professor at the neighboring medical school named Xie Qingcheng. He is extremely hot and has a very cold and alpha-like aura. I really want him to fuck me." In the comments below, people began to mock him for being such a slut. But shortly thereafter, a new comment entered the fray. That's when the atmosphere began to turn a little absurd. Holy fuck, the older students upstairs should really stop laughing. If you ever get to read this guest book again, you guys need to head over to the medical school and see him for yourself. He really is so fucking handsome, he'd make all you bottoms wet. His legs are so long, and he's got broad shoulders and a narrow waist. Okay, wait, I drink every time long legs are mentioned, so... He's so tall and his whole body is as straight as a javelin pole. It nearly fucking kills me whenever he wears a suit and tie. After meeting him, I had wet dreams about him for 3 nights in a row. The comments that followed were even more outrageously uninhibited. I want Guga to take care of me so bad. I hear that Professor Xie is divorced. Maybe he's like us. My god, are you for real? If he's like us, then I'd be willing to stay single my whole life if he rails me just once. After reading this section, He Yu fell silent for a long time. He really couldn't bear it anymore. He'd be an idiot if he gave up this chance to mock Xie Qingcheng for this. The jokes had practically written themselves. And so, He Yu grinned. Dr. Xie, who could have thought you're the ideal top for all the bottoms? Seeing as they all want you to fuck them, why don't you take one for the team and choose a concubine? Xie Qingcheng's face twisted into an extremely ugly expression as he tried to flip the page. He Yu pressed down on the paper, stopping him. I haven't finished reading. I'm turning the page. Wait a while longer. I'm turning it. He Yu insisted with a mocking smile. Just a little while. Feeling humiliated, Xie Qingcheng forcibly turned the page. He Yu's laughter was particularly cruel as he continued reading, searching for any more mentions of Xie Qingcheng later in the book. However, he'd only flipped through a few pages when his laughter died. Because He Yu saw his own name. Oh, it is like the Heroes of the Cultivation World ranking. Oh my god. Meat Bun just loves to write things like this in. I really didn't... I should have expected something like this, but I didn't expect them to find this in a cave, of all places. It was written in the same style as the group chat for gays from previous pages. Evidently, Xie Qingcheng had noticed as well, and the two of them began to read together once more. Why were all the earlier pages filled with bottoms chatting with each other? Anyway, this is the tops chat. Anyone have any recommendations for pretty boys at school? After a bunch of random names, He Yu's name appeared. Oh, He Yu. It seems like he's nice to everyone, but really? He's extremely snooty and so standoffish. Not to mention, he looks way too delicate and refined. He may be tall, but his skin is as pale as a girl's. Though I've seen him play basketball before, and he's pretty strong. I'm sure it'd feel great to fuck him. OP, have you gone mad? That's the young master of the He family. It's exactly that kind of status that makes him more fuckable. He really turns me on. Don't you guys know that not only is He Yu good at playing basketball, but he's also really good at beating people up? Yeah, he's nice on the eyes, but haven't you guys seen that swimmer's body of his when he takes off his clothes at the school's swimming pool? He'd kill you with a single blow. But I still want him. Xie Qingcheng turned to the ashen-faced He Yu when he was done reading. Amazing. In the future, you should bring a self-defense flashlight when you go out at night. Worst case scenario. You can give me a call if you're really too scared. Seeing as we're old acquaintances, I can even walk you home. Turn the page, said He Yu. I haven't seen enough yet. He Yu fell silent. A depressed gloom settled over He Yu for a long while. In the end, it seemed that he no longer felt like wasting his energy arguing with Xie Qingcheng. He simply tore those 2 pages out of the notebook and set them on fire with a lighter. After reducing the pages to ashes, he even went so far as to pull out a tissue to wipe the fingers that had touched them clean, his face devoid of emotion while he worked. Xie Qingcheng simply continued perusing the notebook silently as the stoic-faced He Yu stood nearby. For a long time, the only sounds in the cave were the echoes of the rain splashing down outside. Summer rainstorms didn't last long, however. So by the time their cell phones read 8 o'clock, this boundless thunderstorm had already weakened into a lightly pattering rain shower. Xie Qingcheng lifted a pale and slender hand to close the notebook, but just before the book was completely shut, something a bit strange at the corner of a page caught his eye. Xie Qingcheng's hands froze. he made the hurricane lamp brighter and locked his gaze on that spot, his expression attentive yet grave. A few seconds later, He Yu heard Xie Qingcheng's voice float over, his tone so chilly it sounded a little peculiar. He Yu, come take a look at this. It was a line of writing squeezed into a very unremarkable corner of the notebook. WZL will be murdered soon. These words were written with the fountain pen in a crooked scrawl. It looked as though someone wrote it with their left hand. However, what made this message so intriguing was that the person had signed her name at the end. It was a name that no one could have expected to see here. Jiang Lan Pei. Thunder boomed outside, but within the cave, they could have heard a pin drop. Wasn't Jiang Lan Pei locked up in a psychiatric hospital for 20 years? He Yu finally broke the silence in a quiet voice. Xie Qingcheng frowned in contemplation, though she did get a key in the end, and had plenty of opportunities to come and go as she pleased. But she was probably limited to the grounds of Chung Kong Psychiatric Hospital. He Yu continued Xie Qingcheng's train of thought. Do you think she could have left and returned without a single soul noticing? And run off to this cave on Neverland Island at Huzhou University and leave a message like this in such an unremarkable tree hollow book? Of course, it was impossible. Plus, this writing looks very new, like it was only left within the past few days. Xie Qingcheng examined those red words written in the book under the searchlight's illumination. And who's this WZL? I'm trying to think about what the chapter title could mean, and I'm like, is this a prank that He Yu is pulling to creep Xie Qingcheng out? Like, did he write that? The two of them pondered over this old, worn-out notebook for a very long time. He Yu suddenly said, I just remembered a rumor I overheard a few days ago on campus. What was it? Some students feel that although Jiang Lan Pei is terrifying, she's also quite a tragic figure, the type that spawns legends. Plus, when she died, she was wearing the kind of red dress that's associated with vengeful spirits. Those students made up a saying that if you have a grudge against someone, you can picture how that person will die and write it down on a piece of paper. Then, you write down Jiang Lan Pei's name using a red pen, and her ghost will kill your enemy for you. He Yu paused and added, but your enemy must be a man. It won't work if they're female. Why is that? Because the newspapers published a story about what Jiang Lan Pei went through, so the students who made up this rumor thought that Jiang Lan Pei's resentment would only target men. He Yu took another look at the writing in the notebook. Say, do you think someone might have come to this island recently and remembered the rumor about Jiang Lan Pei's murderous ghost when they were flipping through this book and reading the messages people left before? Maybe that person happened to loathe this WZL guy, just like the author of the previous message, so they were struck with the idea of changing the simple rant into a proper curse. Shaking his head, Xie Qingcheng pulled out his phone and casually took a photo for documentation. Then he said, I'll bring this book to the Public Security Bureau later. I keep feeling that there's a certain link between Jiang Lan Pei and your Huzhou University. The light in He Yu's eyes flickered as he said softly, I agree. Oh? The school uniform. Xie Qingcheng sighed, and his eyes hardened. So we're on the same page. I suppose the Department of Public Security's thinking along the same lines, too. I've seen plainclothes officers at your school the past few days. Some of them are even veteran officers who used to work with my parents. They seem to be investigating something. The day Jiang Lan Pei murdered Liang Jicheng, there was a seemingly unremarkable detail that was extremely odd. Why did Jiang Lan Pei go through the trouble of taking off Xie Xue's Huzhou University uniform and putting it on Liang Jicheng's dead body before dismembering and mutilating the corpse. Mentally ill people rarely act without reason, especially when it's something this highly purposeful and unusual, said Xie Qingcheng. The way I see it, the investigation of Jiang Lanpei's case will implicate certain people at your school sooner or later. Hu Yu raised a hand and smiled. I definitely won't be included among those people. Xie Qingcheng made no reply. I might not even have been born yet when she got locked up. Exasperated, Xie Qingcheng said, This isn't something either of us should worry about. I'll hand the book over to the police after we get out of here. Let's leave it to them to figure it out. Hu Yu hummed in response. Since they were talking about Chung Kong Psychiatric Hospital, he suddenly had a thought. Oh yeah. What? I've been wondering recently how we would be doing now if Xie Shui had actually been murdered when we rushed over that day. Xie Qingcheng fixed his black pupils on Hu Yu indifferently. Why can't you think about something good for once? I wish her more good than anyone else. In his annoyance, Xie Qingcheng didn't catch the meaning behind Hu Yu's words. He only irritably tossed out a careless reply. Me too. But if something really happened to her, then I'd go on living just as I am now, just so long as I'm not dead myself. It wasn't as though Xie Qingcheng hadn't experienced something similar before. That one time when the devastating incident had occurred, there wasn't even a chance for him to turn back or get a shot at redemption. In the middle of a downpour, he'd seen the ice-cold bodies of his parents sprawled across the ground. Behind him was the yellow and white striped police tape that cordoned off the area. The belated wail of piercing sirens filled his ears. The front end of a truck was engulfed in violent flames. In the light of the towering fire, he could see that only half of his mother's body was intact. Her wide eyes stared vacantly at him. A hand, severed by the truck's wheel, lay near the toe of his shoe. Back then, he thought that there was no way for him to continue living. But 19 years had already passed since then. Hu Yu didn't know what Xie Qingcheng was thinking about, but when he heard the older man's response, he fell silent for a while. He gazed at Xie Qingcheng with an unreadable expression in his eyes, then gave him a very light, icy smile. As expected of you, Xie Qingcheng. You live every moment of your life with such a cool head that you would only ever lose control for a minute at a time. People can't live their whole lives in grief, said Xie Qingcheng. When tragedy strikes, even if it's impossible for you to accept it immediately, you'll still be able to slowly digest what happened in the end. Rather than wallowing in your pain and refusing to move on, it's better to not waste this time and instead pull yourself together to do the things that need to be done, in order to prevent more tragedies from happening. Ah, Hu Yu said softly. A stone-cold pragmatist indeed. Mood heavy, he didn't want to remain in this cave with Xie Qingcheng any longer. Since the rain had let up some, he walked outside alone. Hu Yu spent some time calming himself down until the stroke of midnight, when he saw some signs of activity on the opposite shore. It turned out that his conscientious, money-seeking club member had wrapped up his responsibilities and was paddling the duck boat to return to Neverland Island right on time. He became quite animated the moment he saw Hu Yu, standing up and waving frantically from the swaying boat. How was it? I'm very punctual, aren't I? Was He Laoban's declaration of love successful? He peered impatiently behind Hu Yu as he spoke. Huh? Where's the lovely lady? What declaration of love? The only person on the island was a stone-cold pragmatist. To whom was he supposed to declare love? Hu Yu responded to the dumb fuck on the boat with a smile. I don't believe Xuezhang should be nosy about that. Look at you, you're shy. Ha ha ha, I get it. He winked at Hu Yu with a suggestive expression, then pulled up the Alipay QR code on his phone. the rest of the payment. Yu rolled his eyes and took out his phone. It still had no signal. He unlocked it with an icy expression. Please turn off the signal jammer first. The senior club member did as he was told, then asked him with great excitement, "Did you see the message I sent you on the other phone?" "What message?" Yu fished out his other phone and looked at it. "Hello, Bun. There's a first aid kit inside the cave on the island. It has boxes of condoms in the second compartment. If you need them, you can check inside the kit, and remember to send me a red packet afterward." His accomplice silently edged over with a nosy expression on his face. It's even the kind with the special delay lubricant, guaranteed to wear your lady out. Yu smiled slightly. Don't put these kinds of things in the first aid kit anymore. It's terribly immoral, don't you think, Shuejong? He finally picked up on the bourgeoisie member's poor mood. After a brief moment of shock, he suddenly realized this was because Yu didn't get any. The senior club member couldn't help but feel immense admiration for that unknown 180-centimeter beauty. Originally, he'd thought that the reason the beautiful woman didn't come to the shore with Yu was because she had been left so weak after receiving his affections for the first time that she couldn't rise. There's a footnote for this, referencing the Song of Everlasting Sorrow by Tang Dynasty poet Bai Juyi, a description of Yang Guifei, the beloved consort of Emperor Xuanzong. But now, it seemed that the towering beauty was in fact a cold mistress who was unswayed by wealth and riches. Young Master He was so tragic. How did he end up falling for someone so high maintenance? Tisk tisk, a waste of money. Such a waste of money. The club member shut up. Even after receiving the last installment of his payment, he behaved professionally and called a friend to get a kayak out from the storehouse. The two of them departed first, leaving the duck boat on the shore for Yu to use. Yu finished dealing with the scene of the crime and was about to go to the cave and call Xie Qingcheng over. But the moment he turned around, he froze. This is what he caught him. This is what he caught him doing. His whole plan is what he caught. I see. That man was already standing in the moonlit forest with his hands in his pockets, leaning against a cedar tree as he gazed at Yu with a blank expression. Who knew how long he'd been there, silently listening under the shadows of the trees? Yu was silent. Xie Qingcheng lit a cigarette and, like a cop conducting an interrogation, said, "I'll give you one chance to explain." He slowly exhaled a faint ring of gray smoke and locked eyes with Yu. Go ahead. Interesting. That's the end of the chapter. Chapter 21 on page 273 is called "In Turn, I Caught Her in the Act." Huh. At that very moment, Huzhou University's indoor gymnasium was bustling with an unusual amount of noise and excitement, thanks to the students who had set up several rows of temporary vending booths inside of its walls. This was one of the places that campus exploration event attendees usually visited the least, but due to the rain outside, it was impossible for the outdoor events to continue. Thus, a crowd of participating students had gathered here. Oh look, there's a love letter mailbox here. It was here? Yes, I finally found it. I've been looking forever. A group of grinning female students crowded around a capsule-shaped mailbox, falling over each other to write the names of the recipients of their love letters and stuff them into the box. It was a mailbox specifically prepared for shy and socially anxious folks, to avoid the awkwardness of personally delivering a love letter. It was set up every year during the campus exploration event, and was wildly popular with the students. Xie sat in a corner, drinking warm milk as she finished writing her letter and sealed it in a pure white envelope. She looked the envelope over before carefully writing down, one delicate stroke after another, the name of the boy with whom she was secretly in love. A satisfied smile spread over her face as she got up and walked over to the capsule mailbox. However, just as she was about to deposit her love letter, a droplet of blood suddenly fell from above, dotting the envelope's surface. Xiaoshui gasped in surprise. Ah, Xiaojie, your nose is bleeding. An observant bystander quickly took out a pack of tissues from her bag and offered it to Xiaoshui. Here, wipe your nose before more drips. Xiaoshui hastily tilted her head up as she covered her nose with the tissue. Thank you. How could she be so unlucky as to suddenly get a nosebleed? It had been a long time since this happened. Now that she thought about it, the last time it had happened, she was still a little kid. Your letter, why don't I get you another one? It's fine, it's fine, it's fine. I wrote it for no reason, just for fun. It's not important. Not important at all. Fearing that someone would see the name on the envelope and laugh at her, Xiaoshui hurriedly nudged her way through the crowd. She stuffed the blood-stained letter into the mailbox slot in a flurry, then turned tail and ran off without another glance, still clutching at her nose. It was only then that the student standing by the mailbox realized, I think that was Xie Laoshe. After running some distance away, Xiaoshui thought she ought to give her brother a call and ask what it meant when someone suddenly got a nosebleed. However, when she dialed his number, all she got was, "Hello, the user you are calling has their device switched off. Please call again later." Xiaoshui was taken aback. Could it be that her brother had already returned to his dorm and gone to bed? Xiaoshui could never have possibly imagined that her big brother wasn't asleep at all. That because he had taken her place as the nine-tailed fox, he was trapped by He Yu on an island for a good few hours. And despite his careful planning, He Yu had been caught red-handed by her big brother in the end. The two gentlemen stood by the water's edge, both with their hands shoved into their pockets as they faced each other with icy stares. Xie Qingcheng was waiting patiently for He Yu's explanation. The moon's reflection in the water is a beautiful sight to behold. He Yu turned his face up to the sky and spoke at last, unhurried. The moon is very beautiful tonight. Do you understand what I mean? And there's a footnote. This phrase is, the moon is very beautiful tonight. This phrase is commonly used as a veiled declaration of love. Yeah. As I thought. Speak normally. Is he... Okay. I also think you're very good looking, and I want to date you. Have some sense of fucking shame. Xie Qingcheng flicked off the ash from the cigarette he was holding. I'm not joking. Slowly, He Yu's smile faded. He finally removed his frivolous mask, likely because he knew Xie Qingcheng could see right through it, and his expression darkened. Seeing as you already heard me, what else is there for me to explain? He met Xie Qingcheng's sharply cold eyes once again, and with a pause and a sigh, he laid things out in simple terms. Very well. I have someone that I like. I was originally planning on telling her tonight, but she didn't come. Do you finally get it now? Xie Qingcheng had a vague hunch that something wasn't quite right, but he couldn't quite pinpoint what exactly it was at the moment. He was distracted by the very fact that He Yu had a girl he liked. Someone at your school? Yes. Who? He Yu smiled. That is none of your business. Come on. Do the math. Do the math. You were in the costume that your sister was supposed to be in. Who do you think it is? Yeah, that's a good question, Henry. Why would you be distracted and or curious about this? Xie Qingcheng straightened out his legs, then slowly walked over to He Yu. Though he was shorter than He Yu, the higher ground he was standing on allowed him to look down at the younger man from above. His peach blossom eyes looked as though they were lightly frosted by the moonlight. Yu, do you know what kind of illness you have? Yu said indifferently. Psychological Ebola. Then what are you doing trying to date someone before you fully recovered and gotten your symptoms under control? Yu did not react. It was almost as though he had long anticipated such a reaction from Xie Qingcheng. After a moment of silence, Yu looked back at him and said softly, "Weren't you the one who once said that I ought to form connections with others and build a bridge to society? You encouraged me to interact with other people, to make friends and find affection, to seek love. Not to mention, weren't you the one who said I hadn't even gotten into a relationship, that I'd forever be just a little devil?" I said that out of anger. Xie Qingcheng's eyes were as sharp as a blade. "You're so smart. You should be able to tell the difference between truth and provocation." "Thank you for thinking so highly of me," Yu said. "But I'm also only 19 years old. I'm not as perceptive as you think I am." Xie Qingcheng's expression hardened. "You'd better be more careful, Yu. Do you know just how many people become depressed after a breakup? Even ordinary people can lose their minds over love, suffering terribly and hovering between life and death. What you need is a steady and calm state of mind. Once all your lab results have returned to normal, you could date whoever you want, and it'll have nothing to do with me. I won't even bother to ask." Yu suddenly thought of Xie Xue's dimpled smile. It was kind of funny that Xie Qingcheng had no idea that the person Yu liked was Xie Xue. He had no idea, yet he was already reacting like this. If he had known that the person that he had originally planned on trapping on this island was his beloved little sister, Xie Qingcheng probably would have already slapped him viciously across the face. "Have you ever been able to exercise complete control over your emotions these past few years?" Xie Qingcheng asked. "If not, then what right do you have to pursue someone romantically?" Yu met Xie Qingcheng's gaze with his dark eyes. "The fact that I made such a decision in the first place means that I believe I can control myself." "You really are far too conceited." "Conceited?" Yu repeated with a chuckle. Then he asked softly, "Dr. Xie, have I ever hurt anyone in these 19 years?" Xie Qingcheng did not answer. "I just like someone, that's all." Yu paused. "But I don't get such a right, do I?" "You have no idea just how this illness will manifest in the future," Xie Qingcheng warned. "Not to mention, you're a patient with the blood toxin variant. You..." "Professor Xie," Yu calmly interrupted the older man's speech. "You are no longer my personal physician. I know that you are lonely in your middle age, and that's causing you sleepless nights. So it's perfectly normal that you like to poke your nose into the affairs of young people. But frankly speaking, I think this matter of mine has very little to do with you." Provoked by Yu's tone, Xie Qingcheng's temper also flared. "Do you think I want to poke my nose into your business? I'm only doing this out of respect for your father. Not to mention, I treated your illness for 7 years. It's hardly unreasonable to feel concern for a dog that you've looked after for 7 years, much less a person." Yu lowered his head with a smirk as he ran the tip of his tongue over his teeth. "Ah, what a pity it is that I'm not your dog." Xie Qingcheng could only stare in response. "It's late. I don't want to continue standing here feeding the mosquitoes. Are you getting onto the boat or not?" Yu loosened the iron chain that secured the boat into place and said to Xie Qingcheng in a slightly mocking tone, "Your back must hurt after sitting for so long. Do you need me to assist you in any way?" In the end, the two of them parted on bad terms once again. After returning to the dormitory, Xie Qingcheng took a shower and thought over the recent events. Even though it was a bit late, he gave He Jiwei a call. "Oh, Dr. Xie. Long time no talk. Long time no talk." He Jiwei was surprisingly rather polite when speaking to Xie Ching Chung. What a coincidence. I was just thinking about giving you a call. There's a matter that Executive He would call me for? Xie Ching-chung felt a little taken aback. That's right. I wanted to ask you about the incident at Chung Kong Psychiatric Hospital. That made sense. He Jiwei sighed heavily. These past few days, I've managed to get the gist of what happened. That boy He Yu really worries me far too much. I heard that you were with him through the whole thing. I was. The officers at the police station told me that you were looking after him all day that day. I really must thank you. It seemed that He Yu had not told He Jiwei the whole story. Xie Ching-chung disliked being thanked for no good reason, and so he gave He Jiwei a rough account of what happened during the Chung Kong incident, omitting, of course, any mention of the blood toxin. He Jiwei fell silent for a short while after he was done giving his report. So that's what happened. That little brat. After a moment of deliberation, Xie Ching-chung said, Executive He, you treated me kindly in the past, so even though I'm no longer employed with the He family, I still take note of his condition when I see him. So if you don't mind, I'd like to ask how He Yu has been doing over the past few years. Thanks to you, he's doing much better. Didn't you say back then that he needed to become independent once he reached that stage? I was rather worried at first, but who could have expected that he actually had that level of self-control? He gets shots occasionally or takes medicine when he feels unwell, but he hasn't had any other issues. Then, would you say he's dependent on medication? That... He Jiwei hesitated slightly before forcing out a laugh. You know very well that his mother and I are both very busy with our work. To be honest, it's impossible for us to pay much attention to how much medicine he takes. According to the housekeeper, it's not too bad. He doesn't medicate all that much. Why? Has he been acting strangely? No. Xie Ching-chung hesitated for a moment. Despite his concerns, he wasn't intending to divulge He Yu's dating plans to He Jiwei. It's nothing, really. I was just asking, that's all. He Jiwei said, You can return at any time if you'd like. You're the best fit for someone like He Yu. There's no one else like you. Executive He, you flatter me, surely, Xie Ching-chung said. I've left the healthcare system for so long, even my medical license has expired. Well, you were only a student when you came to us. Forget it. Since you're unwilling, then I won't press the issue any further. However, Dr. Xie, seeing as you and He Yu now live quite close to each other, could I please trouble you to help look after him from time to time? He may seem mature, but he's still quite young. He often acts on his emotions and does some rash things on impulse. His mother and I can't watch over him, so there are times when we really are quite worried about the boy. He Jiwei then added, But please, don't force yourself if you don't have the time. No, it's fine. After all, he was my patient for a very long time, Xie Ching-chung said. Not to mention, he's Executive He's son. These are all things that I ought to do. The two of them chatted idly for a while longer before hanging up. Xie Ching-chung leaned back against his chair and reached up to massage his temples. To him, He Yu was a unique patient who was enmeshed in a very complicated network of personal relationships. But after all was said and done, He Yu had grown up and become independent. Might not even listen to what He Jiwei said anymore. There were certain things that were truly beyond his control. Xie Ching-chung could only observe for now. Yeah, Henry, that is real. We've been too busy to pay attention to how sick our son is. Yeah, no wonder he's insane. With an aching head, Xie Ching-chung blow-dried his hair and changed into clean clothes. Even if He Yu truly wasn't ready for dating, there was no guarantee the poor, unlucky girl would even say yes if he were to ask her out. Xie Ching-chung should just wait and see. With this in mind, he picked up the notebook he'd brought home from Secret Utopia and pushed open the door to go downstairs. There, he called a taxi and headed off to the local police department. At the conclusion of the campus exploration event, the handful of students in charge of clearing the scene were moving the activity fixtures, one of which was the massive love letter mailbox. The love letter capsule is way too heavy this year. Just how many love letters are there? Is everyone so shy and unwilling to say their feelings outright? Ah. Hey, don't step on my foot. Ayo. In a flurry of limbs, the two students handling the mailbox stumbled to the ground together with the box. Its cheap plastic flap cracked open upon impact, and the letters within spilled out with a whoosh all over the synthetic rubber surface of the track. With a gust of the night wind, the flyaway letters scattered in all directions, as though they had grown legs. One of the students went pale with alarm. Oh no! These love letters from those young men and women hadn't even been delivered into the hands of their recipients yet. How could they lose them? The students scrambled up and hastily dusted themselves off before running after the flyaway envelopes. But there were too many letters that had been scattered away by the wind for the two of them to even hope to pick up all by themselves. They were reduced to raising their voices and yelling desperately for passers-by to lend a hand. All the students were also very enthusiastic, and they cornered and chased down the letters, grabbing them in handfuls from all around. He Yu just so happened to pass by as the scene played out. As expected of a warm, kind, and gentle rich young master and perfect role model in front of others such as him, He Yu didn't hesitate to help his Shuizhang and Shuijie pick up all those runaway love letters. Oh, bye, Nina. Have a good one. Thank you so much. The Shuijie was so busy, she didn't even look up as she bowed repeatedly. The girl beside her pinched her and whispered, "It's He Yu." Ah, the Shuijie yelped and looked up. Sure enough, it was He Yu. With her heartbeat accelerating like a rocket, she stuttered out, Hi, Shuidi." He Yu smiled and passed her the letters before continuing to help her pick up some more. There was a love letter stuck in the bushes beside the basketball court. He Yu walked over and picked up the pristine white envelope. He flicked off the dust only to suddenly freeze. There were bloodstains on that letter. Beneath the stains, a row of exceedingly beautifully written words were still visible. To Wei Dongheng. I thought so. I thought there was no way it was He Yu. There was no way it was He Yu that Xiexue was into. I knew it. Wei Dongheng was the class idol in Class 1 of the senior cohort in the drama department of the School of Fine Arts. He was also someone He Yu had known for a very long time. Among the wealthy business social circles in Huzhou, theirs were the two names that were mentioned the most frequently when the subject of different influential families' young masters came up. The reason for this was none other than the fact that young Master He and young Master Wei were very similar in many respects. Even their birthdays were on the same day, though they were born in different years. However, the results of their upbringings were completely different. In this social circle, young Master He was famously well educated and refined, while young Master Wei was known for his licentious behavior and debauchery. The Wei family was an aristocratic military family. However, one of their ancestral tombs might have been unfortunately renovated into a nightclub or the like. As a result, people probably desecrated their clan by popping and locking on the grave every single night. So perhaps that was how such a refined family had managed to pop out a degenerate like Wei Dongheng. Okay. I guess that's an explanation for that. Ever since childhood, Wei Dongheng had spent his days street racing, skipping classes, and revving engines with disreputable thugs. He stirred up endless trouble for the Wei family. If not for their family's influence, They might have long since been cooked up into a pot of shit stew. In this social circle, the number of times parents cried in humiliated rage, "Look at you, then look at yourself. What good are you?" was exactly equal to the frequency with which their teary children retorted, "Look at Wei Dongheng, then look at your me. What's wrong with how I am?" The entire Huzhou University knew that Wei Dongheng was unbelievably wild. When the school provided the drama students with audition opportunities, Wei Dongheng didn't attend a single tryout. The reason why he was a drama major was because it was the one major in the Department of Fine Arts that had the lowest passing grade requirement. In short, he was only there to coast by and collect a degree. Which visually impaired girl would write him a love letter, He Yu thought, somewhat incredulously. He was getting ready to return the envelope when he paused, suddenly struck by a feeling that something wasn't quite right. He glanced at the envelope once more. To Wei Dongheng. To Wei Dongheng. Then he froze. The handwriting. He could never mistake it. He felt like he'd been struck by an invisible, staggering blow. This was Xieshui's handwriting. Oh my, what's going on? Did the letters fall out? A group of male students who had just finished their game of basketball emerged from the court while wiping away their sweat. One of them glanced over casually and saw the letter in He Yu's hands. A smile immediately broke out over the student's face as he turned and said, "Young Master He, you've gotten another great harvest this year." Another student stepped off the basketball court. He was about He Yu's height and had an honest and respectable face, but his hair was bleached and dyed a flashy silver, and he had 5 piercings in his ears. He wore a carefree expression of uninhibited degeneracy. It was Wei Dongheng, the man himself. Wei Dongheng and He Yu's eyes met. Wei Dongheng nodded first. "Young Master He." He Yu returned the gesture, but the words to Wei Dongheng kept swinging back and forth before his eyes, every line and stroke carrying those familiar flourishes. Usually, Wei Dongheng had no interest in these idiotic love letters, but since this particular one was in He Yu's hands, he couldn't suppress the urge to at least take a second glance. That's when he spotted the bloodstain on the envelope. Wei Dongheng furrowed his brow. A threatening letter? He Yu seemed exceptionally nonchalant. Even the movements of his lips were very slight. "Looks like it. Want me to toss it for you?" Henry, of course he's blonde. He's not, didn't he dye his hair silver though? Does that count? Yeah, dyed a flashy silver. You can't carry out your blonde hatred here. He Yu seemed exceptionally nonchalant. Even the movements of his lips were very slight. "Looks like it. Want me to toss it for you?" "I have no interest in love letters. They all go in the trash can. I'm sure that young Master He understands. But this is the first time I've gotten a threatening letter. I'll have to go back and read it properly." Wei Dongheng smiled at He Yu and plucked the letter from his hands. "Thanks." Out of habit, He Yu replied blandly, "No problem." After Wei Dongheng left, a very long time passed before He Yu managed to slowly clear his mind. He still didn't dare believe that what he saw was really Xieshui's confession letter to Wei Dongheng. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed that the 2 girls in charge of the capsule mailbox were gazing over at him and Wei Dongheng in excitement just now. He made his way back toward them. "Excuse me, about that blood-stained letter." "Oh, that girl with all the luck, Xia Laoshi wrote it." "Yeah, it was her. Maybe it was because it gets so dry in the fall, but her nose started bleeding while she was writing. I was the one who passed her a tissue." "Okay." After a moment, He Yu said quietly, "Thank you." He Yu returned to his bedroom that evening, and after washing up, he lay in bed and endured a sleepless night, thinking about Xieshui and Wei Dongheng. Xieshui had also known Wei Dongheng all this time. When they were young, the Wei family's young master would come over to play. Xie would be there too, and she and He Yu would always team up to target Wei Dongheng. Back then, He Yu thought that Xie disliked this arrogant boy who thought himself higher than the heavens. Oh, Henry, you said Lon and Wolf insisted platinum blonde counts as blonde? You disagreed at first, but now you see it. Platinum blonde I can see, but silver, I draw the line there. But at the time, none of them asked themselves, why would anyone go out of their way to bother someone if they genuinely didn't care about them? I guess you should be asking yourself that now, He Yu. Xie and Wei Dongheng attended the same high school. When Xie was a second-year student, Wei Dongheng was in his first year. When Xie was a third-year student, Wei Dongheng was yet again in his first year. Later, when Xie graduated, Wei Dongheng was still in his first year. This joker actually used the fact that he had been held back twice to become a legend in their circles, and even passed it off as an impressive feat, as he held the position of the first-year idol for 3 years in a row. He was a perennial rule breaker. When Xie was hall monitor at school, Wei Dongheng had walked right past her with complete indifference to eat barbecue off-campus for lunch. She furiously warned him against it, only for him to ignore her. Even the clique of hoodlums who followed him around started to ridicule her. Wei Ge, is this our little Saozi? She really keeps you on a short leash. She said she's going to take points off you if you dare to go out. Oh, I'm so scared. Saozi, not only are you super short, but you're also flat as a board. Wei Ge, this little girl is really writing down in her notebook that you broke the rules. Why aren't you trying to keep her happy? The gangsters whistled and jeered. Xie, who was wearing the school's red hall monitor armband, became so angry her eyes began to fill with tears. She dashed over to Wei Dongheng's swaggering figure as he walked away with his backpack slung over one shoulder, stood on her tiptoes, and yelled furiously, Wei Dongheng, you're trash. You're the most irritating person in the universe. But despite that, why did she come to Huzhou University's School of Fine Arts to be a teacher after graduating? She was the top of her class and had gotten exceptionally good grades, so she clearly could have tried to get a job at Yanzhou's Academy of Drama, where the pay was better and the program was much more prestigious. But back then, she had told He Yu over WeChat that she lacked confidence in herself. That's why she decided to accept an offer at the somewhat less challenging Huzhou University. He Yu had his doubts at the time. Xie had always been a very brave person. Other than Xie Qingcheng, He Yu had never seen anyone more courageous than her. So why would someone like her lack the confidence to even apply for a job? It was only now that He Yu finally understood that what Xie had actually been chasing after was Wei Dongheng, who was attending Huzhou University. And He Yu had been completely oblivious, rejecting offers from top overseas universities to come after her. How laughable. He Yu lay on his bed the entire night, quiet and numb as he continued mulling over the situation until the sky began to brighten with the coming dawn. He Yu, we've got morning classes. Are you getting up? Let's go have breakfast. His roommate urged him from beyond the curtain. He Yu agreed and sat up. But a brief moment later, his chest suddenly contracted with a sharp pain, which rapidly spread through the rest of his body. He propped his slightly cold forehead up with a hand and took a pill from the bedside table. I'm not feeling very well, he said in a low voice. You guys go ahead. He Yu felt unwell, but Xie Qingcheng's night wasn't much better. By the time he made it to the police department, he was already feeling a little off. Xie Qingcheng wasn't sure if he'd caught a chill on the island or what, but he kept feeling dizzy and hearing a faint ringing in his ears. He handed the notebook with the suspicious message off to a police officer on duty and explained the circumstances of its discovery before turning to leave. However, he'd only made it to the staircase before he suddenly collapsed. Xie Ge. Xie Qingcheng turned his head with difficulty and saw that it was Chen Man, who was in the middle of helping his coworker transport some files. Xie Ge. As Chen Man sprinted over, Xie Qingcheng was overcome by a bout of intense dizziness. It was only after Chen Man grabbed him around his waist that he was able to steady himself. Chen Man looked over him anxiously. "What's wrong?" "I don't know. I suddenly felt a little dizzy." "Your face looks awfully red, too." "Let me take a look." "Aya, why do you feel so hot?" Chen Man hastily propped him upright and turned to shout at his coworker. Xiaozhou, take over for me for a bit, okay? I'm taking someone to the infirmary." That's the end of the chapter, and we are due for break time. And when we come back, we will be on chapter 22, which is called "I Tormented Him Until He Got a Fever." Now, it sounds like he already has a fever, but okay. Sure. You do that, huh, you? Alright. I will see y'all in just about 10 minutes. Hello, I am back. I am so excited to read the chapter with this title. I tormented him until he got a fever. I need to know what kind of torment we're talking about. So yeah, we're on page 289 for chapter 22. The station's infirmary didn't have much diagnostic equipment. It mostly contained supplies for treating external injuries. So Chen Man ended up bringing Xie Qingcheng to the hospital. Chen Man rushed back and forth, registering at overnight urgent care, picking up medicine, and waiting for the blood test results, while Xie Qingcheng reclined in the hospital's ice-cold metal chair and rested with his eyes closed. After a while, Chen Man returned from the service window with the freshly printed examination report in hand. Written on this report was a line of text that made Chen Man wonder whether he'd gone blind. An allergic reaction to mango. Comrade, shouldn't you know what you're allergic to at your age? The overnight urgent care doctor pushed up their glasses as they scolded Xie Qingcheng. You really were too careless. Just look at your test results. How terrifying. Brandishing their pen imperiously as they spoke, the doctor prescribed a slew of medicines in an indecipherable script. We usually give patients with such serious allergic reactions antihistamine injections. But given the severity of his current state, he would need to receive them over the course of 3 days. If he's too busy to take time off from work, there's a new type of IV saline solution that will alleviate the symptoms overnight. Think it over and decide which option you'd prefer. Xie Qingcheng disliked antihistamine injections. He detested the thought of having to go to the hospital 3 days in a row even more. I'll have the IV, he said, and Xie Qingcheng and Chen Man were led into the infusion room. Xie Qingcheng had a delicate constitution and tended to feel dizzy and nauseated if the IV drip delivered the medicine too rapidly, so he slowed down the infusion himself after the nurse left. You could do that? Oh, he was a doctor, so he knows how to do that. For a second I was like, how do we even do that? Chen Man busied himself with swiftly taking care of the administrative procedures, and then sat down next to Xie Qingcheng, who was resting with his eyes closed. Chen Man stared at his profile for a while, then said quietly, "Guh, don't you always avoid eating mango?" Feeling unbelievably unfortunate, Xie Qingcheng said, "I was so unlucky I went fucking blind, okay?" Chen Man was already used to being cursed out for no good reason. His older brother had been Xie Qingcheng's father's mentee, so he had known Xie Qingcheng since childhood and was familiar with this Daga's personality. When this Daga lost face, you'd better pretend not to see it. If you dared point it out, you'd definitely end up just like him right now, thoroughly chewed out. Chen Man sighed. "Sit tight. I'll go pour some hot water for you." He returned in a heartbeat and held a paper cup out to Xie Qingcheng. "Guh, you should drink some." Only then did Xie Qingcheng open his eyes to receive the cup of piping hot water with his slightly cool fingertips and drink a few sips. "So, who tricked you into eating mango?" Chen Man took in his sickly appearance and mumbled, "What a fucking asshole." After finishing the water, Xie Qingcheng's voice seemed to have finally warmed back up to a certain degree. It was payback. That's what it was, wasn't it? He thought. Nothing good ever happened whenever he ran into He Yu. Of course, Xie Qingcheng knew that he had a mango allergy, and a severe one at that. His skin wouldn't just burn up and flush red. He would also come down with a high fever. He had known since he was 7 or 8 years old that he needed to avoid this fruit as if it were a biological weapon. Even his little sister, who craved mango so much she would literally drool when she saw it, had to accommodate him. In fact, in the interest of his health and safety, she never brought any mango-flavored foods into their home. It had been so long that he'd forgotten what mango tasted like. When He Yu brought out the cake on Neverland Island, it was already too dark for him to see what type it was, so he had eaten the mango mousse cake, thinking it was peach-flavored. Xie Qingcheng sighed. "I'm going to sleep for a bit. Are you in a rush to get back?" "Oh," Chen Man said hastily. "No, I'm not in a rush. I'll keep you company." Xie Qingcheng truly was too tired and miserable. He lowered his lashes, leaned back against the chair, and fell asleep. The air conditioning was rather cold in the IV ward, and patients receiving IV treatment were susceptible to the cold to begin with. Chen Man saw a slight frown appear on Xie Qingcheng's sleeping face, as though he was displeased with the temperature. In response, Chen Man got up and removed his own navy blue uniform jacket and draped it over Xie Qingcheng. Sensing the warmth, Xie Qingcheng's brow slowly smoothed out. If this were like a normal, like, romance, they would totally have a thing. I'm calling it. Chen Man fixed his eyes on Xie Qingcheng's handsome, chiseled features and felt that the time wasn't passing too slowly at all. What did I just say? Sometime later, an emergency room nurse came over. "Time for a new bag?" she inquired. The nurse was doing her rounds while taking over for the next shift. But as soon as she walked over and saw that the patient receiving the IV transfusion was Xie Qingcheng, she became instantly dumbfounded. She was an old colleague of Xie Qingcheng's at Huzhou First Hospital, but their relationship wasn't the greatest. Her expression darkened slightly as her gaze darted back and forth between Xie Qingcheng and Chen Man, before landing on the police uniform draped over Xie Qingcheng's shoulders for several seconds. An oblivious Chen Man replied with utmost politeness, "Yes, thank you." The nurse laughed humorlessly and dragged out her words in a sing-song manner as she said, "No problem. May I ask who this person is to you?" My Chen Man's cheeks subconsciously flushed. "My friend." "Oh, your friend." The nurse smiled. "Officer, you're going to a lot of trouble, bringing your friend here in the middle of the night and keeping watch over him so closely." Chen Man didn't know how to respond. He found her words a bit odd, but he didn't take them to heart. The nurse sashayed away after she was done changing the IV bag. As she left the room, she took out her phone to tap some messages into the group chat that she had with her colleagues. Oh no. Oh no. It had been late at night when Xie Qingcheng was first hooked up to the IV. So by the time the 3 IV bags were in his system and he woke up, it was already morning. He had an allergic constitution. His reactions were intense, and his recovery slow, so he still felt rather unwell even after the IV needle had been removed. Realizing this, Chen Man had said to him, "Ge, keep my jacket for now. Don't catch a cold." Xie Qingcheng hummed weakly in agreement and walked out of the treatment room with Chen Man's uniform jacket on. The hospital lobby was already brimming with people when they checked out. Huzhou First Hospital was the busiest hospital in the area, after all. Chen Man took the medical report to fetch the oral prescription, while Xie Qingcheng waited in a less crowded area. Xie Qingcheng leaned against the wall with his eyes closed and head hanging down. After a while, he heard footsteps approaching. Someone stopped before him. Thinking it was Chen Man, Xie Qingcheng opened his eyes. "All done?" he asked without looking at the newcomer, and simply straightened up. "Thanks for today. Now let's go." Xie Qingcheng. Xie Qingcheng's head shot up at the sound of that voice. A handsome face with well-defined features appeared before his eyes. It was the culprit who had reduced him to such a sorry state, He Yu. He Yu stared at him. "Why are you here?" Xie Qingcheng's expression soured in an instant. The fact that they just had a falling out on the island the night before aside, it seemed that, ever since Xie Qingcheng and He Yu reunited, they would get into an altercation every time they met. He Yu had grown up into a full-fledged adult in the time that they had been apart, so he didn't find Xie Qingcheng as scary as he did when he was a child, nor did he feel the same powerful reverence toward him anymore. What's more, He Yu had found many ways to vex this man and make him feel ill at ease, and found it deeply satisfying to boot. Xie Qingcheng emphatically refused to let a young man laugh at him. His features grew sharp and cold, while he stood up perfectly straight, as if he were not ill at all. "It's nothing. I had some business to take care of." He sized up He Yu. "And why are you at the hospital?" As he spoke, his gaze slid downward to land on the bag of medicine that He Yu was holding. He Yu moved the bag behind him without batting an eye and replied mildly, "My roommate is sick. I'm getting him some medicine since it's more convenient for me to drive." They have such fragile masculinity that they can't even say, like, "I'm sick," to each other. They can't even admit being sick. The two of them stared at each other in silence, hiding their true selves. After a while, He Yu said, "The jacket you're wearing." It was only then that Xie Qingcheng realized that Chen Man's uniform was still draped over his shoulders. Layered on top of his snowy white dress shirt, the police jacket really was quite conspicuous. No wonder He Yu had been able to spot him immediately in the bustling crowd. "It's my friend's. You're waiting for him?" Xie Qingcheng nodded perfunctorily. He Yu was still in a terrible mood. Xie Xue's love letter had given him such a great shock that he could no longer suppress the symptoms of his illness with his usual medicine, so he had come to the hospital to pick up a new prescription. To be honest, he'd wanted to ignore Xie Qingcheng when he spotted him earlier, but upon remembering that Xie Qingcheng was Xie Xue's elder brother, he thought that he should at least check in on him since they'd run into each other at a hospital. But right now, he didn't want to talk much more with Xie Qingcheng either, much less meet his friend. "I'll be leaving first then," said He Yu. "I still have other things to do." And so, he left just like that. Xie Qingcheng frowned slightly as he watched He Yu make his way through the bustling crowd. He knew that when He Yu's illness worsened, some of the medication he used could only be prescribed at provincial-level hospitals. Could it be? Xie Ge. At that moment, Chen Man returned, interrupting Xie Qingcheng's thoughts. I got your medicine. I'll take you back now. He noticed Xie Qingcheng's gaze and followed it, but He Yu had already disappeared. Chen Man asked, What's wrong? Nothing, Xie Qingcheng replied. What else could he say? That he'd met the culprit responsible for this whole mess? Of course not. So Xie Qingcheng simply said, Let's go. Oh, okay. Be careful on the steps. They arrived half an hour later at the single faculty dormitory of Huzhou University's Medical Science Department in Chen Man's car. Chen Man hung his uniform jacket on a clothes rack beside the door and went into the kitchen to prepare the medicine. He handed it to Xie Qingcheng and watched as he slowly drank it down. Ge? Chen Man thought for a moment and then said, Did you run into an acquaintance at the hospital just now? Xie Qingcheng didn't reply. By the way, a nurse came by last night to change the IV bag, but she was acting kind of weird. This time around, Xie Qingcheng acknowledged him. Did that nurse have a long face, a mole below her lips, and look to be around 30 or 40 years of age? Yes. That's Nurse Zhou. She used to work under an older doctor, Xie Qingcheng said. It's fine. She and I just don't get along very well. After taking his medicine, Xie Qingcheng started to feel tired again. He lay down on the sofa with his arm over his eyes and annoyed himself with thoughts of Nurse Zhou and He Yu. Regardless if it was his former coworker at Huzhou First Hospital or He Yu, they both irritated him to no end. When he was vexed, he liked to smoke. He didn't even get to touch his lighter at all last night, as he was stuck in the IV room. Now he lifted his arm from his eyes and said to Chen Man, Hand me a cigarette. Chen Man paled in shock. You can't smoke. Your test results, look at them, Look at what? Who's the doctor here, me or you? Hand me a cigarette. I don't have any. I won't give it to you. You don't or you won't? I won't. I don't, Chen Man stammered. Xie Qingcheng yanked Chen Man forward by the lapels, swiftly rifled through his pockets, and fished out a pack of Li Chun brand cigarettes from Chen Man's police uniform. He rolled his eyes as he tore the pack open and drew out a cigarette. He then held it between his teeth and looked at Chen Man expectantly. Chen Man was silent. Xie Qingcheng said, Light. Chen Man sighed deeply, truly at the end of his rope. Xie, it's really bad for you to continue like this. If Aunt and Uncle knew... Chen Man hadn't intended to bring up Xie Qingcheng's parents. When he saw how ugly Xie Qingcheng's expression had become, he didn't dare to speak another word. Instead, he quietly mumbled, Sorry. He handed Xie Qingcheng the lighter with utmost reluctance, and looked on helplessly as Xie Qingcheng proceeded to slowly poison himself right before his eyes. Xie Qingcheng took a few puffs from the cigarette, his pale, slender hand dangling from the edge of the sofa as he lay back to stare at the ceiling with an empty expression. You've been busy rushing around all night, he said to Chen Man. I've also gotten in the way of your work. Thank you. You can go back now. I'll be fine. How could this be called getting in the way? But Xie Qingcheng couldn't make Chen Man bustle about anymore. Go back and rest, he insisted. Reluctantly, Chen Man thought things over and said, I'm worried for you. I feel like your allergic reaction to the mango must have been planned out by some malicious bastard. If anyone tries to harass you, tell me. I'm a police officer now, and I can take care of him What can you do? Xie Qingcheng finally shifted his gaze and looked at the young man, whose face still held a touch of childish innocence. He raised his hand and pulled down hard on his police hat until it covered his eyes. You talk about doing this and doing that, but you're still a rookie, so what can you even do? I'm telling you to go back and do your civil policeman duties properly. Don't show off when there's nothing happening. Your brother is already gone, and you're the only son left in the family, so don't make your parents worry so much. Got it, Chen Man mumbled and then lowered his head in silence. Xie Qingcheng leaned back against the soft cushion once more, exhausted and rather listless. Go home. Chen Man had no choice but to comply. Chen Man was a good kid, but he was just too brash and impatient in everything that he did. Xie Qingcheng knew he became a police officer because his brother had died in an anti-gang operation, and he wanted to get revenge. But the silly child was foolish and never capable enough, so he ended up getting assigned to a local police station instead of the criminal investigation team to which his brother had belonged. Xie Qingcheng could tell that this was a fact that Chen Man had never truly gotten over in his heart. But Xie Qingcheng thought it was for the best. Henry, why did I hear anti-gay operation for a second? I guess I should enunciate a little more, because you never know in a meat bun novel. Chen Man's brother had stuck too closely to Xie Qingcheng's own parents, getting swept deeper and deeper, one step after another, into intrigue and danger. Because of this, Xie Qingcheng had always felt a sense of remorse toward Chen Man's family. It was best for Chen Man to be a base-level civil police officer and spend his days catching thieves, doing things like finding lost dogs for grandpas and such. It'd be even better if he stayed at this level for the rest of his career. Pushing these thoughts aside, Xie Qingcheng fell into a dizzy sleep that lasted until the next morning when he was awoken by his phone's ringtone. Hello? Hey, eh? It was Xie Xue, calling him as she was getting ready in her dorm. What happened to your voice? It's nothing. I wasn't paying attention when I was eating and ate some mango. What? You're allergic and you still... I already said I wasn't paying attention. Why are you calling me? Oh, it's nothing, said Xie Xue. I was just letting you know that there's a fall trip after class today. We're going to Nansha. Xie Qingcheng coughed a few times. His body felt so hot, it was as though he were on fire. Then go. Stay safe on the way, and don't go to any remote places with anyone by yourself. I told you, you got lucky at Chung Kong Hospital. Okay, already. I got it. Don't worry. You take care of yourself. Worried that she was disrupting Xie Qingcheng's rest, the siblings only exchanged a few more words before Xie Xue hung up. She deliberated for a while after ending the call, then sent a voice message to He Yu. Xie Qingcheng fell asleep again. He was someone who excelled at taking care of other people, but wasn't particularly good at doing the same for himself. Other than taking 2 pills after Chen Man brought him back, he had done nothing but smoke a handful of cigarettes. He still hadn't even eaten. But he felt ill and wasn't in the mood to cook, so it was only natural that he just fell right back to sleep without doing anything else. This time, he slept for who knew how long. While drifting in and out of slumber, Xie Qingcheng heard the faint click of the lock. His consciousness was like a kite floating in the air as he dreamt, but the sound of the lock was the string that pulled him back to reality. He didn't open his eyes, but he knew that someone had come. In his daze, he thought it was Xie Xue. She was the only one who had the key to his dorm. Didn't she have to go on the fall trip? It was frowned upon for new teachers to miss events like these at universities. Why did she come here? Despite his concerns, Xie Qingcheng nevertheless turned over in an attempt to avoid being disturbed by his sister. He instinctually wanted to curl up under the covers, but unfortunately, there were no covers to grab, and he realized he'd been lying on the couch ever since he got home. He hadn't even undone the buttons of his cuffs. Just as he furrowed his brow in irritation, a sudden warmth descended over him. The person who entered his house had walked over, stared at him for a while, and placed a thin summer blanket over his body. Xie Qingcheng wanted to open his eyes, but he really was exhausted. There was only the blurry image of a tall young man reflected between the fluttering of his lashes, before his heavy eyelids fell shut once more. It was already dusk by the time he woke up again. Someone had diligently mopped the floor of his dorm and opened the windows to let in fresh air. A slightly damp breeze blew in through the curtains and set the snowy white gauze fluttering under the glow of the setting sun. Xie Qingcheng narrowed his eyes slightly. He stuck an arm out from under the summer blanket that had been warmed by his body heat and covered his eyes with the back of his hand. There was a sound of another man talking within the room, as if on the phone. Okay. Then I'll come in a few days. Don't worry about it. You aren't asking for a lot of time. I also want to gain some experience unrelated to my major, so it's no trouble at all. Rest assured, Feng Jie. I've already asked for time off. I know it's difficult for you. There won't be any surprises. Yes. Then I'll let you go now. The sickly Xie Qingcheng finally realized that this was He Yu's voice. Xie Qingcheng bolted up and turned in the direction of the voice. He Yu had just finished his call and came out of the kitchen carrying a wooden tray in his hands. He walked to Xie Qingcheng's side and set the tray down on the tea table. On the tray was a large Mino-ware ceramic bowl. It was filled to the brim with chicken porridge that had simmered for a very long time until it turned an appetizing milky white. The porridge had taken on the chicken stock's flavors, with each grain soaking up the rich and milky soup enveloping it. Snowy white pieces of chicken floated within the porridge, and fragrant and crispy white sesame seeds had been sprinkled on top. Oh, you're awake? Since you're awake, you should eat this while it's hot. I made it following a recipe I found online. He Yu paused for a few moments, then said, I saw the lab results and the medical prescription on your desk. Xie Qingcheng didn't respond. You went to the emergency room last night for an IV, didn't you? With a hand pressed to his forehead, Xie Qingcheng spent some time gathering himself before adjusting his position on the sofa. After ensuring that his voice wouldn't sound as pathetic as he felt, he finally said, Why did you come here? He Yu didn't seem to be in the greatest shape either. He was calm, so calm that there was a sense of darkness lurking within. Even though Xie Qingcheng was sick, he could still faintly sense He Yu's strangeness. He traced his gaze along He Yu's arm and discovered that there were bandages wrapped around his wrist. He looked higher and found that the almond eyes that had been kept lowered this whole time seemed to be slightly red. Xie Qingcheng thought once again of the medicine He Yu got at the hospital. But before he could ask He Yu about it, the younger man had bent down and reached over Xie Qingcheng's shoulder to push a hand into the sofa behind him. He Yu looked down at the man and said, Xie Qingcheng, if you were having such a severe allergic reaction to mango, why did you tell me nothing was wrong at the hospital? Xie Shui told you? Yes, she asked me to come visit you, saying that you didn't feel well and that your voice was all hoarse when you spoke to her. Xie Qingcheng made no reply. The boy watched him intently. I was the one who gave it to you. I was the one who caused you to end up like this. Why did you hide it from me? Why didn't you come find me? Why didn't you tell me the truth at the hospital? Damn, he's very concerned about this. There was no need, Xie Qingcheng said in a very calm and cold tone. You didn't mean it. You didn't know that I'm allergic to mangoes. Besides, I was already being taken care of. But these words didn't satisfy He Yu. On the contrary, they triggered the appearance of something slightly dangerous in his eyes as he stared at Xie Qingcheng. I don't think I'm so evil that I'd stand back and ignore someone I hurt like this. Xie Qingcheng said nothing. So what exactly do all of you see me as? All of you. Xie Qingcheng furrowed his brow slightly. Aside from him, who else was there at the hospital? But given He Yu's deteriorating mood, Xie Qingcheng held his tongue and didn't ask. He Yu stilled before him. He, too, might have felt that he had gone a bit overboard. He slowly straightened back up and said, "Never mind." He poured Xie Qingcheng a cup of water, then tidied up his examination results. He sighed at the sight of the terrifying data printed at the top detailing the allergic reaction. "If there's nothing else you need, I'll be going now." Out of instinct born from serving as He Yu's doctor for 7 years, Xie Qingcheng stopped him. "He Yu, what is it?" Xie Qingcheng frowned slightly. "Did something happen to you?" "No." "Then what's with the bandages on your wrist? And the medicine you went to the hospital for?" He Yu draped his uniform jacket over his shoulders and replied without a backward glance. "I already told you about the medicine. It was for a friend. My wrist is bandaged because your stovetop was too messy, and I burned myself while cleaning up." He straightened his arm, and that bandage disappeared beneath the wide sleeves of his uniform jacket. He Yu stood motionless for a moment, as though trying to decide what to say. He turned his head slightly to address Xie Qingcheng again. "I still have the evening self-study session to get to, so I'll be leaving now. Remember to give Xie Xue a call and tell her I came over." Xie Qingcheng nodded, but he still felt that there was something vaguely off about He Yu as he watched him getting ready to leave. After some thought, he asked, "Even Xie Xue went on the fall trip, so why didn't you?" He Yu paused for a moment while tying his shoes. From Xie Qingcheng's line of sight, he couldn't see the younger man's entire face clearly, only part of his sharp and elegant jawline that was half hidden in the shadows. "It's too boring. Most of the people going on the trip are acting majors. I have nothing in common with them, so I didn't want to participate." He Yu knotted his shoelaces with a yank, pushed open the door, and left before Xie Qingcheng could ask any more questions. That's the end of the chapter. I do have, yes, I have one more chapter to read today. We might go a little bit over, but I kind of thought that would happen. So no biggie. And by the way, this chapter on page 305, chapter 23, is called "The Murder Case We Were Embroiled in Had Yet to Conclude." You know, when I started this book, I never expected there would be a murder mystery, or any number of things that have happened. Xie Qingcheng recovered completely from his illness a few days later, and was eating with Xie Xue in Huzhou University's dining hall. Upon seeing the chicken porridge in his bowl, he suddenly realized that it had been quite a few days since he last saw He Yu. He also hadn't come across any of He Yu's posts when browsing his WeChat moments either. He frowned slightly as he recalled He Yu's strange behavior on the day that he had come to check on him in his dormitory. Xie Qingcheng was an extremely rational person, but he wasn't completely heartless. Not to mention, he had promised He Jiwei that he would help him keep an eye on He Yu. So it was a matter of course that he'd have some concern for the boy. And so, once Xie Xue carried over her meal tray and sat down at the table across from him, he asked her how He Yu had been doing recently. Who would have thought that, in response to her brother's inquiry, Xie Xue would suddenly widen her eyes and say, "Huh? You don't know? He requested a leave of absence and went to Hangshe to film a drama. Didn't he tell you?" Xie Qingcheng's hand that was holding his chopsticks froze. "Isn't he majoring in screenwriting and directing?" It's only for a little while. He's helping to step in for another actor and playing a minor supporting role. They took a shine to him when he was buying breakfast by the school's front gate, and he's somewhat interested in it as well. Frankly speaking, with his looks, it's kind of hard to say which side of the camera he'll be working on in the future. He's also a highly motivated person, so he definitely wouldn't waste an opportunity to gather some experience. But why so suddenly? Well, it's because the actor originally slated for the fifth male lead role got into an accident. That kid was a drama major, but he crashed into a taxi while biking around the campus gates before he even arrived on set. He got a huge gash on his face and had to get a bunch of stitches. The production team needed to get someone to fill in for his role fast and ended up finding He Yu. As Xie Shui explained the situation, Xie Jingcheng vaguely recalled the phone call that He Yu had had that day in his home. It seemed as though that was what the conversation was about. Xie Shui rambled on. But there's one thing that I find a bit strange. I've seen the script for this drama before. It's a super crappy little web drama. With his tastes, I would have thought he'd definitely look down on such a show, but he suddenly agreed, just like that. Even if it won't take much time, something like 10 days or so, I still have no idea what he's thinking. He seemed to be in a pretty bad mood when he was asking me for time off, too. He was so closed off when I talked to him. Upon hearing this, Xie Qingcheng's expression turned grave. He thought back to the bandage that had been perfunctorily wrapped around He Yu's wrist that day, and the bag of medicine from the hospital. Has anything bad happened to He Yu recently? Of course not. For some reason, Xie Shui's mood seemed to have improved by leaps and bounds ever since the fall trip. She appeared to almost give off an aura of a sumptuous peach blossom in full bloom. She chewed on her ice cream spoon thoughtfully, and it was only after a while that she began to waver and say hesitantly, I don't really know either, but I don't think anything's happened. Xie Qingcheng watched Xie Shui pensively, noticing her shining eyes and strikingly good mood. He could sense that she'd been exceptionally happy the past few days since returning to campus. Her head was constantly bowed as she tapped away at her phone and responded to message after message. Who knew to whom she was talking? It was the same with her WeChat moments. In the past, her posts were all along the lines of, a new XX restaurant opened on XX Street. Anyone want to go check it out with me? But recently, the posts had suddenly and inexplicably become much more artistic and refined. They were things like excerpts from youth literature that Xie Qingcheng couldn't understand, no matter how hard he squinted, or strange photographs, such as a stretch of lake water or 2 leaves from a tree. Late last night, she even posted a picture of a shadow cast upon a wall with the words, hee hee, little white floof. It was difficult to tell just whose shadow it was with the fuzzy lighting. Perhaps it was her own. Xie Qingcheng had even commented on it, asking her, who's this little white floof? A long time later, Xie Shui finally replied, a cute little puppy. Xie Qingcheng said, stop posting such pointless things in your moments. Hurry up and go to bed. Xie Shui responded with an emoji of a face with its tongue sticking out. A while later, Xie Qingcheng discovered that she had also changed her profile picture to a swan that was facing away from the camera. Recalling these details, Xie Qingcheng asked, then what about you? Has anything good happened to you recently? Xie Shui's cheeks flushed red. She turned her face away and continued biting on her spoon, carefully tucking the secret incident that happened during the fall trip into the bottom of her heart. Oh, nothing. Xie Qingcheng folded his arms as he silently observed her body language and the details of her embarrassed expression. His gaze slowly became keenly perceptive. Oh, right, Ge? Xie Shui, who felt a bit bashful under Xie Qingcheng's fixed stare, tried to change the subject. I brought some specialty pastries from the fall trip back for you and He Yu. Are you busy this weekend? No. Why? There's a conference at school, so I can't take the day off. But pastries go bad so quickly. So if you have some time, could you make a trip down to Hangshe and check on He Yu for me? That way you can bring him the pastries, too. Xie Qingcheng frowned slightly. He felt as if Xie Shui was keeping something from him, but he did not question her any further. All right, he agreed. He was rather worried about He Yu's condition to begin with, so it was a convenient excuse for him to visit the production team and check on He Yu's mental state. At dusk that very day, The ruins of Cheung Kong Psychiatric Hospital stood empty, bordered by white and yellow police tape. When the wind blew, the police tape trembled as dust rose over the field of scorched earth beyond. Recently, a lot of people had made their way to this place from the city. Some were here to mourn the victims' deaths, while others were only here for the novelty and to join in on the excitement. Among the thronging crowd was an inconspicuous man wearing horn-rimmed glasses. Having squeezed his way through the group of people, he stared in terror and hesitation at the charred grounds of Cheung Kong Psychiatric Hospital with his slightly protruding eyeballs. Yeah, they're all dead. Not a single higher-up is still alive. Could it really be Jiang Lanpei's vengeful spirit coming for their lives? That woman was wearing a red dress when she died. I hear these kinds of ghosts are the most powerful, so it's no wonder that the fire seemed like it was going for Liang Jicheng's accomplices on purpose. You're going to scare me to death. As the chatter increased around him, the man in glasses began to tremble harder. On such a hot day, his entire body was covered in sweat, and his back was almost completely soaked through. He swallowed his saliva and turned back. He needed to go home. His parents had already been living separately for a long time. He lived with his father, who was also part of the organization. But among his parents' shared assets, there was a safe in the old residence where he lived when he was still a child. Inside the safe was a stack of dusty old papers with moth-eaten corners. Those were Jiang Lanpei's real files. His father had once told him that if something were to ever happen to him, he should hand over those papers to the police and then turn himself in. It would be fine even if he went to jail, because at least he'd get to stay alive. He was a coward. Following his father's lead, he'd only dipped his toes into the organization. He was too scared to say anything, and even threw up in a terrified daze the day the police came to his home to investigate. But now that he'd returned to his senses, now he knew that this issue absolutely wasn't so simple. The list of the dead posted in the newspaper told him as much. He didn't want to die. He didn't want to be killed. He was terrified and urgently hoped to retrieve the items from the safe and run to the police department. In the past, he had been afraid of police sirens. He'd jolt upright in fear and tremble like a mouse whenever he heard police cars in his nightmares. But now he finally realized in hindsight that only the police could save him. He broke into a sprint the moment he entered the little group of villas. The houses were set in a community that could have been considered posh 20 years ago. He was petrified, terrified that those people would catch up to him, terrified that Jiang Lanpei's ghost would catch up to him. Crimson tongues of raging flame, crimson waves of a ghostly dress. The more he thought about it, the more terrified he became. He couldn't help but start screaming as he ran. He came close to pissing himself, and his glasses nearly slipped off the greasy bridge of his nose. He forced his way into the garden of the old villa, and immediately charged through the doors. He was afraid. So afraid that he didn't question why the door of this old home that had lain deserted for more than a decade would be unlocked, nor did he wonder why the main doors would only be half closed. The man in glasses was so disoriented. His head was like a pot of porridge. He panted heavily as he hurtled down the stairs to the basement. The rotting floorboards seemed like a lineup of corpse after corpse of the dead patients at Cheung Kong Psychiatric Hospital, heaving low and heavy sighs beneath his feet. His mind was on the verge of breaking completely, and his lips trembled uncontrollably. Help me. Help me. With a bang, he smashed through the basement door and charged hastily toward the safe. He remembered the passcode. It was his mother's birthday. Even though his father was a filthy lecher, the reason his strong-willed mother always looked down on him when she was younger and why they later divorced. The password was never changed. Now that he thought about it, his mother also liked curling her hair and wearing red dresses when she was younger. Hong Kong fashion was popular back then, and many pretty women liked to dress up the way Hong Kong celebrities did in the papers. The most popular trend was those billowing red dresses. Fingers trembling, the man in glasses turned the dial, once and once again. The door of the safe clicked open. He reached in. A few seconds later, he suddenly spasmed, almost convulsing, as if he'd been electrocuted. It was gone. That stack of papers, they were gone. Impossible. How could this be? Amid the crushing disappointment and heightened sense of horror, he suddenly felt something warm land on his forehead with a soft plop. All the bones in his body seemed to be on the verge of turning tail and fleeing, but trapped within his flesh, they could only remain inside him in despair. Once again, there was that same sound and sensation. Yet another drop of something warm fell. This time, it landed on his lips. It smelled metallic. The man's eyes suddenly bulged out. He hyperventilated, and his features contorted as he slowly looked up. He saw a woman who died on the staircase, with a gun still in her hand. She had been shot through the head, and her blood was pooling out all over the ground. The blast had destroyed her eyes, but her face was still barely recognizable, her eye sockets staring fixedly in his direction. The woman looked as though she'd committed suicide, but the man in glasses knew for certain that she hadn't. Because this was his mom. The man in glasses cried out involuntarily, whether in extreme horror or sorrow. One couldn't tell. Mom! Mom! His mother didn't live here. His mother had already left more than 10 years ago without ever coming back. Did she know about these files too? Did she also want to take these files to protect her son? The man in glasses broke down and immediately crumpled to the floor. His face was a mess of tears, snot, sweat, and blood. Beast-like howls emitted from his mouth, but not even he knew what he was wailing for. Then, he heard footsteps coming from behind him. It was the sound of high heels tapping against the floor. Click, click, click. The heels were bespoke counter-surveillance shoe covers with the latest, most innovative technology. The man in glasses didn't even have the chance to turn his head when he felt something hard pressed against the back of his neck. Sorry, I paused it. Bespoke counter-surveillance shoe covers with the latest, most innovative technology? Like, wouldn't that mean that they should be really silent or something? Or... yeah. Anyway. A female voice giggled softly from behind him in a sing-song tone. Drop, drop, drop the hanky. Set it lightly behind your friend's back. No one let him know. The woman held a yellowed file before his eyes. Warm breath brushed against the man's temple as the newcomer asked gently, "Were you looking for this?" "You." The man in glasses didn't dare to turn around. His teeth clattered as he trembled. "So is your mama." The man was too terrified to speak. Your old man was a cowardly hamster, so disloyal to the boss that he even hid something like this at home. The woman sighed into his ear, elegant as an orchid. He really shouldn't have. Did he think the boss wouldn't know? Who are you?" The woman smiled. What kind of answers can a disloyal man seek? He made no reply. Save your question for hell. Those were the last words the man in glasses ever heard. A few seconds later, an ear-piercing gunshot stirred up the dust of the basement. The woman steered clear of the filthy mess of blackened blood on the floor and cleaned up the scene with an air of indifference. Then she looked down, leafed through Jiang Lanpei's files herself, and walked out of the old and abandoned building without a backward glance. That's the end of the chapter. That's where we're stopping for today. I don't know what is going on. we will come back on Monday, and that will be Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And then I'll have another stream next week on Wednesday. So next week we're back to the regular Monday, Wednesday schedule. And when we come back, we will be on chapter 24, which is called He Came Into My Hotel Room. So that's fun. I'm very intrigued by, like, the mystery story that we're getting that's, like, sort of converging with the main characters. And I'm so, like I said, I was so not expecting that in this book. So I'm so curious to see, like, how that develops. But yeah, Henry, I'm sure everything will be fine. Yeah, this is a meat bun novel after all. So I will see y'all on Monday. Thankfully very soon. I could get spoiled by this. Like we're finishing the novel next week, and it's weird it being the end of the week and I'm gonna be on stream again in like 2 days, but yeah. So yeah, I will see y'all on Monday. Thank you for coming to the stream. Bye.